Welcome, everybody. Thanks, everybody that's tuned in via Zoom, who is here in attendance in the building. My name is Tariq Buds. I am an entrepreneur. Through some of the journeys I've been through, Harlem Business Alliance is assisting me with trying to obtain a license through education, through consultation. So I am here, and we are here once a month providing education along with the Harlem Business Alliance, along with the Community Board 10. And what's next is usually our goal and incentive to ask everybody or to inform everybody what they should be looking to do. Today, we have a really cool collective, no pun intended, collector. We have a really cool collective doing really good things, who is also here to educate, inform, of course, let you know about what they're doing, which I think is really, really dope. I think it's innovative. I think they have created something that people could look to as inspired to be. So I think we will get some good information today as usual. I'd like to thank Ms. Regina, as usual. Ms. Regina is very instrumental here in Harlem, through the Harlem Business Alliance, that she runs this place. So Ms. Regina, please.
Good evening, everyone. I hope those of you who aren't here today, and it is scorching hot outside, I am encouraged by the people who are here and wonderful thrift in throughout the presentation. And I'm super pleased to be able to have these gentlemen here today to speak to you about their business. So you have individuals who represent different roles, key roles in any business. At the Harlem Business Alliance, we jumped into this space about 3 or 4 years ago because we felt that it was critically important for the most harmed individuals across the state of New York, but actually across the United States, to derive the greatest benefit from legalization. We know that in the Black community, we have been most harmed. And for that reason, we have been laser focused on meeting the needs and addressing the needs of Black people. We feel that your success in turn will generate family wealth, generational wealth, which is key. And you will also work towards hiring people from within our community. You will also have an impact on eradicating disparities that we have within our community. So it is important that you succeed. We would like to see thousands of successful Black-owned businesses across this state, given the decades of harm and terror that was perpetrated on the Black community. So we have a role to play to assist you. You have a role to play in becoming successful, in making millions of dollars, and turning around and pulling somebody else behind you. And as many people as you possibly can within our community, so that we can have better educational outcomes, health outcomes, and we can have less, less harmful policing in our community. I'm a Harlem resident, Harlem through and through, Black through and through. Welcome. We encourage you. We want you to take this knowledge. We want you to use this knowledge. If you need our assistance, please, contact us. Your success is critical. Know that and understand it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's good. We love her. She loves the community. She's passionate about it, like we all are and should be. But she's actually putting in the work. So we salute you, Regina, and thank you. Okay, so this is part 3. We've done 2 other. This is the series, and this is the 3rd part of the series. The last 2 months, we've had different types of individuals up here creating a panel. Today, we're doing it a little different. We have a company, a very diverse company, as you can see. And we're going to talk to them about them, who they are, and of course, what they think that the community needs to know about their next steps and what they should be considering moving forward, trying to become legal in this space. Okay, so gentlemen, I'm going to give you the mic. I want you to just introduce yourself. And you can likely have a CEO, CFO, just don't go too far because I'm going to come back to you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Marcus Cameron. I am the CFO of our company, TKS X Sensei. That's over to.
Hi guys, I'm Matt Catchmark, CEO of TKS X.
How you doing, guys? I'm the collector and I'm the legacy portion of this company.
And technically the director of cultivation.
Yeah, shout out to Legacy. So they are a cultivation company.
The gentleman on the end is actually cultivating, the rest of them make up the actual brand, which is sort of what Regina was alluding to in regards to they have their ducks in a row in terms of the different departments in the company coming together and moving forward. TKS X Sensei. Where did the name come from? TKS X Sensei. And then please break down amongst the three of you how you came together, why it was important that you came together, and what's allowing you to move forward in that collective.
I'll start it and then I'll let Matt tell it because he's a little bit better at telling the story. It sounds better coming from that. TKS X Sensei was originally born out of a simple conversation that Matt and I were having in the back of our barbecue. We've known each other for 10 plus years. We train martial arts together, jujitsu, exactly. Just sitting around, lounging, having a drink. He said, hey, hit me like that. What do you think about this? Oh, by the way, the state is doing this. Okay, I'll talk to you later. All right, 6 months later, I did this. Okay, Matt. 3 months later, we need to have a serious talk. Yes, we do, Matt. All this stuff you're putting together, yes. But as far as the brand, how it came together, that's where these two come in line.
Yeah, so the name itself, TKS Sensei, TKS X Sensei, right, is I'm the sensei part of it, and TKS is the collector stash. It's a collective of a few individuals at the end of the day that make up the collector stash. I'm sensei. Obviously, the name derives from our martial arts experience and background. I've been training jujitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu for about 16 years. We have a gym in White Plains, New York, which is like our home base, basically. There's a run our operation at a little office in the back and stuff. For now, anyway. And that's where our name came from. TKS X Sensei, and the X is I'm gonna collect it.
So in cannabis, I'm director of cultivation, collector staff, TKS part of the TKS X Sensei. And in cannabis, when we breed cannabis, male to female, female to female, when we make feminine seeds, the middle letter is always the X, right? So if you combine in two strains, it'll be the first name X, the second strain, to birth something new. And that's what we did. I've had TKS and Sensei, he's been growing for a little while as well, on top of being a jiu-jitsu martial artist. And when we combined each other, it was just like, hey, like we're forming something new. This is like something new to the world, the community, something brand new to New York, the biggest cannabis consumption state in the world. And it just made sense from the cannabis standpoint.
Yeah, that was leading into what was next? Positions. Yes, obviously.
What makes it so special? Because it does form a bolt-on.
Yeah, so I'll start with I guess my background too, what led me into my role as CEO. But so I started construction in New York City when I was 20 years old. Right, I worked my way from being like a project help, basically doing drafting, and work my way up through like project manager positions. And it was fortunate enough to work on like gut renovations up into eventually do like high-rise construction, like Lower Manhattan. I also did some construction in Yonkers, where I'm born and raised, and also in New Rochelle. So my background in construction really Definitely the project management aspect helped me put me into a role to lead as CEO and like kind of be like more of like the visionary to lead the company in the direction where we have to take it for the next 18 months, you know, so.
Yeah, Matt just has a lot of time on his hands. Don't let you. No, so that's the reason. The way I came in is I'm on the back end of it. I kind of like to stay behind the scenes, so I'm on the finance side. I'm the CFO. My background has always been finance, treasury, international business. I've been, again, Matt and I have known each other for a very long time. So they give me the information, I put the numbers to the information. That's basically it. I'm here to make sure that what we're trying to put together is not only viable from an economic standpoint, but is viable from a community standpoint and from a social equity standpoint. That's where I come in at. That's where I play my part. I do understand the growing aspect of it, not in depth as they do. But the reason why I need to get at least 4 or 5 levels deep is because I can't make the company economically sound or financially sound if I don't know that aspect. So that's where we come in. That's where a lot of this stuff comes in. We slow each other down. We speed each other up. I slow him down. He speeds me up. And collector just chills. All collector says, don't blow it up. I don't care what you do, just don't blow it up. But no, I think we have a lot of trust in one another. We trust each other's ideas. We talk on a consistent basis, and I think that's one of the things we need to, as we go through this panel discussion, some things I may throw out just in mind, some keywords that I'm saying. Communication is always going to be one of those keywords. Communication and trust. And if you don't have that, and if you're not leading your business, you will not run.
So where I come in is I've been cultivating for about 10+ years. I started in my closet, one light, and real quick, people started to understand that locally grown product was way better than anything we were getting shipped here from anywhere else, right? It's like you go to a farmer's market, and that's the reason why farmer's market exists, right? You want to get the freshest produce. So, I started growing 1 to 2 lights, 3 or 4 lights, and before I knew it, I had an actual brand that was recognizable in New York. I was like, damn, I have to do something with this. So me being from the South Bronx, I'm from Hunts Point, I didn't grow up with money, no finances at all. You know what I'm saying? My mom works, still working 9 to 5, she's retired at 65 like everybody else. And I knew if I wanted to take advantage of this new industry, I had to create something that people would believe in and invest in. But at the same time, you want people that are going to invest in you that's not going to take your company from you, right? And I was fortunate enough to meet guys who didn't want to take my company from me and who actually wanted to help me grow as an individual. So as Matt was saying, years of experience in construction, he's got like this, if he's got his eyes on something, he's gonna fuck, excuse my language, but he's gonna make it happen, so it was coming from the hood and where I'm from, like, I don't have the business money. I don't have no LLCs, retainers on lawyers, business plans, pitch decks, investors, like this is all stuff that was foreign to me. Yes, I've been growing for 10+ years. I have a successful brand. But once you get into the legal side of it, it is completely different. You're gonna need help. And doing this overnight is not possible. I couldn't have done this by myself. So that's where the partnership came in. The partnership came in was he also owns multiple successful businesses. So he's set up businesses before. He has employee retention. He has income and is able to manage all these things and balance. I'm lost on all that, So my advice and the biggest proponent of why this all works is because we all knew we all needed each other. Nobody came into this room and said, hey, you know what, you have a successful brand, let me buy it from you, and then you can work for us. Like, that wasn't the case. I own my brand still. I still own my company. I'm a majority owner of this company, and that's all due to, it wasn't even an argument. It wasn't a conversation. There were no negotiations. The lawyers, Matt, straight up came to the table and was like, yo, you are a majority owner of this company. We're going to take this and I'm going to help you run it. We get it set up. And I think within like a month of actually saying like, yeah, let's do this, he had a lawyer on retainer for us. Like we had like the top lawyer in White Plains, New York right now. And he's great. He also smokes pot, so that's a plus. But yeah, like my only advice to anyone getting into this is try to get with like-minded people who love the plant, who love the culture. It's hard to find, but they're out there. Create a brand that people can resonate with and actually have a message behind it. And I have faith people will meet the right people and connect. Thank you.
Okay, so, as this is the third in the series, in each of the other two, myself and the other panelists, we made it a point to say that you need to get a good team. And usually it might just be the collector up here and he might tell you about his team. But this particular brand, they are a company. And a lot of times that might not be the case. I'm an individual, my partner and I, and we're hiring an attorney and we're hiring an accountant, but they're not part of our brand, which is why I think this is really a great way to go about it. Equal equity, very diverse. As you can see, we got Hispanic, white, and Black all in here. They're from the Bronx, Yonkers area. And I think that's important too, to understand that yes, you need a team. Even if you don't do it like this, it is definitely important to have your advocate and people like Regina and the Harlem Business Alliance behind you, supporting you to allow you to even get your license or push you in that direction. Okay, so it was brought to my attention that the rumor is that 10% of your company is owned by employees. Okay, I'd like to hear more about that, why it was even important to do. Secondly, you're looking to do your growth in the future as it stands in the long run in the Bronx, Yonkers area. Why stay here? Why not take it upstate and get a farm?
Okay, so one of the reasons why we wanted to stay in the community is twofold, and this is very key that you guys understand. The New York State, what they're putting out as a regulation, they are highly stressing the social aspect of staying in communities that are hard hit. So if you align yourself along the lines of that proposal, that economic proposal that they're putting out, it keeps you one off the radar, and two, it puts you in front of what they're trying to do. If you're trying to do something different, in my sense, and when I talked to these guys about that, I was like, I don't know, because we did look at a different area. And originally I said, hey, we should look at Bronx, Mount Vernon. My construction guy was like, you're crazy, man. New York City construction stuff is gonna be crazy. I didn't think of that. I'm like, you're right, but we should look here and not there. There was an economic reason for it. There was a social standpoint for it, why we were looking at going that route. So to that point, that's why it's key to stay there. It's also key to stay there because when you're looking at the people, or if you look at the statistics of who's been affected by the war on drugs and by these, I guess these sentences that are unnatural for weed, there's no reason for us to be in, say, New Hope, New York, or all the way up in, by Lake Erie. There's no reason for us to be up there because it's here. It's here, it's in this community, and all these communities link at some point. Think about it. If you think about New York City and Harlem, especially Harlem, you're connected by a bridge that puts you in 3 different boroughs in a 5-minute span. The borough, when you come to the Bronx, it borders 2 sections of Westchester County. You got 2 cities that border the Bronx, Yonkers and Mount Vernon. So technically, that's all New York City in my mind. So why not service a community area that's here? Makes no sense.
Very nice. So with that said, we're looking at a few properties in Mount Vernon, New York. We found one located that we're pretty hopeful on. It's a 50,000 square foot facility. And it's actually borders the Bronx. So literally the building next door is the Bronx. And it's only a 5-minute walk to the 5 train. It's like super accessible, obviously, to everyone in the community, anywhere from the city. it's gonna allow the accessibility for the community to come up from the city and have only a 5-minute walk to that train station. A cultivation facility in the city itself would be a little more difficult, like in our experience in doing construction in the city. So they thought the best thing would be neighboring the city, being able to service the community that was, extremely impacted by the war on drugs. And the Bronx, Yonkers, Mount Vernon. I'm from Yonkers. I grew up 15 minutes from Mount Vernon, from the facility we're proposed to do. So it's like what Marks was saying too about going upstate is of course anyone can invest their money, right? Anyone can go and get a little bit cheaper real estate, cheaper land upstate, which is probably realistically half the price. But again, then who are you hiring at that point, right? It's like you're hiring white people, right? So that's, to be real, you're hiring white people at that point. Who lives up upstate New York, right? So it makes sense to do it in our word more than.
And a big aspect, something that we did extra on top of being able to service the community is we want to give the community and people that work for us 10%. So that allows the community to build their own generational wealth. Without necessarily having to own the company, Like, we did the numbers and we have employees that might be able to walk away with $150,000, $200,000 bonuses at the end of the year. That'd be great for someone who's coming out of school who wants to get cannabis. So I think that our biggest goal and message behind starting this company was that we wanted to service the community and wanted to give back as much as possible. And to us, giving 10% to the community wasn't even a conversation. It was like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, when Collector and I first had met, that was actually one of the initial things when we were speaking about forming the company. I had said, oh, I do 10% of the grant. He was like, looked at me like, did you read my mind? No, but yeah, so 10% of our profits at the end of the year would be dispersed between all the employees who are invested in.
And I thought they were absolutely crazy. Because I'm like, whatever, but again, you start. Whatever. No, I don't know what you guys think. We don't even have any numbers yet. Nah, it's gonna work. It's a promise you. All right, give me the numbers. Put everything down, and they're right. Just to piggyback what these guys saying, when you start looking at our company, we're not the company we're not trying to be a mega corporation. We're not trying to ransack a community. We're trying to establish roots. We're trying to help the community establish roots and essentially take over the community and get better, right? As Regina said, build generational wealth. Just build some sort of wealth for you and your family so that you can thrive and prosper. That's where we're looking to go with the 10% for you.
I definitely applaud that. I think it's unique and I think it's smart, but I think it makes sense for the community. So I applaud you on that. Okay, so financing companies like this in this space is a challenge for a number of reasons. In the last two parts of the series, we talked about that in terms of getting a bank account and the struggles in doing that. What does it really take, at least for your cultivation and what you're trying to do? What does it take financially to really do that? And what would you enlighten the public on in terms of making sure that they're not falling into holes and pitfalls along the way and making it more of a clear path? This space is challenging financially. Funding is challenging financially. Also curious as to where you guys are getting your funding as well.
So this is a challenge. Let's start from the first thing. I want you guys to understand, and this is for people at home that are watching too. If you're a legacy grower, don't ever get rid of the idea that you're a drug. You're a drug dealer. That's it, bottom line. Whether you're legal, whether you're illegal, you're a drug dealer. Now let's figure out how to make you a legal drug, right? So the first thing I'm going to tell you, you need to form either a C corporation or an LLC. Whatever works for you, form it. Understand the tax implications behind that when you form that. And you need to understand that prior to, because the regulations haven't come out yet, you need to understand that since the regulations haven't come out, we still don't know what the New York State tax is going to be. So understand that before you go out. I know there's a lot of things on the internet. Oh, forget the LLC, do the C corp. It might not be beneficial for you. Then you still have to deal with E280, which is the federal. But that is where you can get a little creative within your organization. And that is having a lean organization and understanding where you can kind of like transcend some of the costs, right? So for like a while, I suspect that we'll be doing some of the work in the facility. A lot of the work, yeah. As collectors, we're gonna be doing a lot of work. But what people don't know is when you start looking at the accounting at the end of the year, because we're doubling up, we're in two halves, you get attachment. So understand these aspects as you go.
Can you repeat the tax break?
When you double up, when you own and you work, like when you're a C-suite, you're an executive and you're doing some of the daily work, there's an abatement. You can get some of the tax abatement.
Real estate.
Yeah, so very similar to real estate. I can get that. So these are some of the things you need to consider, right? You also need to consider what you're going to do. Are you going to continue to run a trap house, an apartment, or are you going to scale up? If you're going to scale up, you have to understand the numbers of what you're scaling up to. In the beginning, this was a challenge for the three of us. Because collectively, it was like, yeah, man, we'll just go this and this, and I could do that. I'm like, no, Brian, that's not working. Now I was like, no, we can do this and this. I'm like, no, guys, this isn't working. Then we sat down. I was like, give me the numbers here. I need to make this here. So this all comes back and connects. So if you can go from A to Z and Z back to A with the same numbers and come out with the same outcome, you're in the right steps. You have to do that. And the reason why you need to do that is because when you go to a bank that's looking to, and there are some things out there in New York State that's looking to be in this industry for cannabis, they're going to ask you, okay, tell me your business plan. How do you do this? How are you going to get your income? Who's your investors? Who are you working with? Again, they see you're still a drug dealer until you get where you can be. So this is why I'm telling you, drug dealer, you got to know how to communicate. You got to be able to communicate your plan. And it is difficult. It's not impossible, but it is difficult, right? And if you're going to stay a small time, let's say grower, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But now you have to understand the financial aspect of that as well, right? How do you market yourself? How do you get yourself into certain retail shops? Are you going to stick to one retail shop? Us scaling up to a 50,000 square foot facility allows us a lot more flexibility to be mobile and move around the state. That's what we're hoping for. That's what we're anticipating. Just so you guys understand the numbers behind this. In the first year of sales, they're expecting 1.2 billion in New York State alone. Within 5 years, understand what I'm about to say. 5 years, they're expecting growth sales from cannabis alone, just to sell 4.2 billion. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money for people to make. We're not saying we want all 4.2 billion. If we did, we retire. All of us are retired. However, there are pockets in this financial scheme for everyone to get in and do. Whether you come in as a retail shop, whether you come in as a distributor, whether you come in as a grower, as a cultivator, you need to make yourself aware of the laws and what you can do. Because there are some things that are a little gray, and if you understand those gray areas, you can really manipulate your process and get around it. And as Tariq said, and as Collector said, and that, you got to have a good team. You can't do it by yourself. You need at least one other person to help you, because if you're the grower, you got to worry about your stash. You got to worry about your stash, and you can't worry about someone running your numbers if you don't trust them, right? So this is a process. It sounds challenging. But it's not. It really isn't. Once you start getting into it and you're putting yourself your day in and day out into it, it's really going to come out for you. It's going to make things a lot better for you. But I really employ everyone, even the people out there listening at home. You really have to sit down and think about what you want to do as a business. That is going to determine how you live. If you don't want to be a real business, you still want to stay in the dark corners, stay in the dark corners. Because, for instance, let's take, and I met Eric here early. Let's say he's a grower, and one of his he has like this fluorescent green package that he wants to use. Yeah, once he goes legal, he can't use it. So you can't use that. These are things you need to know. Right, labeling, you gotta know your labeling. How do you market yourself? You gotta start building up your own type of marketing. Are you gonna pay for marketing? There's a lot of costs that you have to incur that you need to start lining up. You need insurance. You're gonna need some sort of insurance, whether it's general liability, you might even need what they call management executive, which is directors and officers, if you're looking to scale up to that level. These are costs that you need to factor in your business plan. You also need to factor in your business plan the cost of if you lose a crop. You might lose your first crop. How do we do that? You need a loss. Like at what level of pricing does this not make sense for us? This is my break price. I can't go below this. It makes no sense for the business. So all of these types of costs you need. As far as forming partnerships, depending on what you're trying to do, I think we uniquely are in a very unique situation. I think Matt found a very great partner for us on the real estate side. Again, that can be a very determining factor. Just leasing. If you know some people in that say leasing, that amount of money costs a lot just to lease a building. Again, when you start looking into New York City, leasing a building, you know how much a studio is going for. Imagine you trying to lease 50,000 square feet. That's a different type of price. That feeds into your profit. That's going into your profit. And then as far as raising money, you got to look at how you want your investors to be. Do you want corporate investors? If you're looking at corporate investors, chances are they're going to want equity in your company. That's just how it is. If you're going to stay away from corporate investors and look at more like what we call angel investors, which are your friends, family, local business people, not everyone's going to want equity, but you're going to have to make the return on equity, the return on the investment lucrative enough so that they want to give you the money. And your business plan has to be solid enough as to where they believe that they can give you the money and they're going to give it back. And what I mean by that is, if you just say, hey, I'm going to do this, and they're like, well, okay, I'm going to give it to you, and then you do nothing, or your business goes away, not only have you lost their money, you've probably lost a friend, a family member, or something of that nature. And when you're looking at saying, okay, hey, I can give you a rate on this, on your investment, you make sure it's comparable to what they would do in the market and make it a little bit better. So then that way you're keeping them and you're retaining them, and just be truthful with your numbers and your finances. Don't lie. If you can't do it, don't do it. That's it, bottom line. If you can't do it, don't do it. Don't put yourself in that type of financial pit by saying, okay, I'm going to raise all this money and take it, and then you do nothing with it. That you're really creating all kinds of problems for yourself. Be truthful to yourself from a finance standpoint, understand what you can do from a finance standpoint, and understand what you can't do from a financial standpoint. And I think that's one of the key ingredients with us. At first, I didn't believe these guys. I'm like, you can't sell $50,000. You're crazy. I'm telling you, we went back and forth for days over this. I'm like, guys, I can't make the numbers work. It's not working. It's just not coming out right. Like 8 months in. Yeah, but then we figured out where the shortfall was. We started figuring things out. I was like, all right, let's sit. And these are the things you have to do. Like, you know, I work a full-time job, and then I do a lot of this stuff at nighttime. Matt is on this 24/7. Like, I think he does it in his sleep. I don't know, there's something wrong with it. But he is. He wakes up, he sends me text messages at 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm on my way to work. No, we gotta do this one. Another thing I think you need to understand from a finance standpoint is understand the financial impact that occurs from homegrown organic marketing. Build an Instagram page. Start getting out. For anyone that's looking to grow, whatever community that you're going to grow in, I advise you to start getting out and meeting the Reginas and the people like that and the Tariqs, because believe it or not, those are the people that's going to stop the business. So if you're not out there doing that, you're not going to survive in the community. That's another thing we need to.
Yeah, and Tariq wanted us to touch on our investors too. Interesting where we're going with that one, right? So we have a pretty unique relationship with our investors. How we met them was through jiu-jitsu, actually. Right? So a lot of this all came through martial arts and jiu-jitsu. But one of our mutual friends, Anthony Sullivan, who's a black belt at our school as well, does construction development and has investor friends who run hedge funds and whatnot. So we ended up simply meeting one through him, and they happen to be 40-year-old guys, young guys who saw the vision. Really, at the end of the day, is what we made them see. They saw they saw the community involvement, they saw the location, they saw the bigger picture at the end of the time. And we're lucky enough, fortunate enough to have basically struck that deal with them. They're behind us and they're putting their money in the mouth. So, yeah.
So you guys actually pretty lucky.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%.
Not everybody's that lucky.
Yeah. No, most
And I think a lot of that luck has to do with, again, so this is, and Tariq, I'm glad you said that, because this is where, as Collector said earlier, all the pieces fall in place. I don't have that construction concept. Matt has, it, right? When it comes to banking and all that stuff, they don't mark the street thing, and I know what to do. And so these are where these parts come in, and you might need help. This is why I say you're going to need help. You're going to need someone like that.
Yeah, and just to, right, so we're the bigger end of the scale, right, is what we're going for at the end of the day. Like, understand, like, if you're just starting out, it may seem like, oh, how am I gonna get, millions of dollars for investment? Of course, it's a ton of money, but right, there's different types of licenses you can go for as well. Like, there's micro business licenses, right? So the micro business is for someone, they're gonna allow to basically grow and process, and I believe retail, distribute and retail their own product at the end of the day, fully integrated. That's the only version of that license, because it's for the micro license, right? So that may be something that you really like to look into. Yeah.
So same goes to Matt. As a CEO, obviously, you're doing this industry at this point. One of the things that I've constantly talked about through every panel that we've had is the importance of networking. And being a networking warrior. And it seems to me, though, that in this trio that you are that guy, while TKS is probably in the lab growing.
Oh, that's, so I came to a realization, probably last year, like, we trapping or whatever, we growing, we doing our thing. At the end of the day, I think it was Mark Cuban that said, if you're a drug dealer, you can open up a business, right? You can definitely be a businessman, right? But the biggest thing that I did, I think that changed the trajectory of what I was doing, was I started putting myself out there. Right? I started meeting people, and being a grower, especially in New York. I grew up during the stop and frisk era. I have a freaking criminal record because I was carrying a knife in one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in the Bronx, making sure I wasn't gonna get shot, killed, or robbed or something, right? Just purely self-defense. Like, I wasn't a troublemaker or anything like that. So when I became a grower, I retreated into the shadows. I didn't really talk to anybody, gave anybody anything. It was because I met them personally. I wasn't at like these sessions and like these events and stuff that's going on now. That was never my thing. My thing was never like, hey, I'm gonna meet everybody and be that guy, So I think it was like last year I decided, you know what, like, if I really want to take advantage of this, I'm gonna have to start meeting people. I'm gonna have to start putting myself out there. So Matt will tell you, the first time I met Matt, I pulled up in what, like BMW X5. I was wearing a ski mask. Because I was afraid of showing people who I was at the end of the day. Still to this day I am. That's the reason why I have to, obviously, right? No face, no case. Hey, that's what it is, and that's how I grew up. But when I met Matt, I had a ski mask on, and I had a business conversation with a businessman in a ski mask. You know what I mean? And he didn't turn me away. He didn't say like, "Yo, this dude is like straight to hood," like, you know what I'm saying? So, I put myself out there, but I put myself out there the way that I wanted to put myself out there. I didn't sacrifice what I didn't want to sacrifice, which was my biggest asset. I feel like is my identity. Once you put that out there, you need to go balls to the wall. I think it was maybe like the second or third time that me and Matt spoke, I took off the ski mask, and I was comfortable enough to have like an actual conversation with him. I think it was at the gym, one of the smoking rolls that we do, that I was like, yo, this guy's like really me. He's just another body, and he appreciates the plant, and everything that I do with it, and he does it himself as well. So networking, meeting people, putting yourself out there, putting yourself in these rooms where you may not feel so comfortable, even being face to face with a lot of these people is very important. Because if I didn't step out of the shadows a year ago, I wouldn't have met any of these guys. I wouldn't have this opportunity. I wasn't thinking about growing 50,000 square feet. I met this guy, he's like, we can fucking do 50,000 square feet. I'm like, what? Like, you out of your mind? Like, he's like, no, we can do it, we can do it. I'm like, all right, cool. So he put the battery on my back and we started going through the numbers and I scaled up from, I'm in 16 lights right now. And we just basically scaled up the business plan from there. And it made me a believer in being able to say, you know what, if I have the right team, I can grow more and provide more for the community and everybody in New York. So networking, absolutely, Tariq. Networking is probably the most important thing you can do, especially if you don't have the finances like me. If you didn't come up with money and you don't have a big bankroll, get into these places, New York business expos and cannabis expos or cannabis events where there's a New York State Cannabis Association is one of them. You get into the room with people, with lawyers, bankers, finance guys. It's free to attend. They do Weed Wednesdays, right? Once a month, Weed Wednesdays, you can attend and meet people who are in the industry trying to help people. I actually met them at a jiu-jitsu studio. I wasn't at that event, but events like that where people are going there to meet up and talk business and create these relationships. Networking is huge, for
My 2 cents on networking as well. It's obviously huge, but it also takes a little discipline and a little bit of like self-confidence to get out there. Like he said, it's not always comfortable to be in front of people that you don't know and just start a conversation out of nothing. It's on a topic you may not know much about, right? But you gotta take yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit in order for you to grow, especially if you want to step into cannabis and grow a business, right? So that's like one of those steps. It's just having a little bit of self-confidence to really do it, take that step forward.
And I would say, understand the financial aspect. And that's all I'm gonna do, because a lot of stuff that they do, that's all I do. But what I told Collective one night, we went to an event, I said, hey, Collective, you gotta start coming aboard. He said, Marcus, I don't want to show the face. All right, we'll be Bruce Wayne. So what? That's what he said. He said, what? I said, be Bruce Wayne. No one knew who Batman was, and no one knew that Bruce Wayne was Batman. What's the problem? I think I need you to be out here because you need to have these conversations with people. If you don't want to have a conversation that's collective, be Bruce Wayne. Understand the finance. See, now when you look at that, understand the financial impact. If you're at these associations meeting these business people know that you're going to do it. They want to know, okay, can you switch from being the grower to the business person? Right. Be Bruce Wayne. That's it. Hey, I represent collective. You know, and you be talking to collective, like I represent collective, man. He got some great stuff. All right, but cool. Once it becomes legal, now you can put your face out there. I was talking to collective the whole time. Okay. That's all I had. Understand that. Be Bruce Wayne. It's not a hard thing to do.
So education is obviously very important. That's why we're here today. How often do you guys get a chance to do stuff like this? And are you willing to do more? Obviously, this is an ongoing series here in Harlem, but there are panels all around the country, all around the world. Are you participating in them? And are you willing to participate in them? And really, what would you constantly, each of you, just one thing, if it was the most important thing that you could let people know that the right way to go about going for your license? Like I said, I'm scared. I've always been scared of failure. I do things when I'm scared, but I hate failure and I'm scared of it. So I don't like screwing up. I like that direct path. And of course, that's what people are looking for.
This is my first time sitting on the panel. We've been to a lot of the different things, different types of meetings. We're on a whole bunch of different associations. I welcome this. This is something that we want to do. We want to get out in the community. This from day one, I said that this is what we need to do in order to educate people on all fronts. The one thing I would take from this, don't look at failure as failure, call it risk mitigation. Put in all the risk factors that you can and mitigate those risks. list everything you can think of is a risk factor, then start mitigating the risk. It's not failure, it's mitigating risk. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to eliminate the risk factor that you don't want to deal with. Some things you just don't have no control over, like crime. You can't do that, you can mitigate that all day long, but it might happen, you never know. That's what I would say. And yes, I would like to do this. You mentioned something about around the world, around the country. I kind of want to stay in New York now. I kind of want to stay in New York now. And there's a reason for it, because yeah, let's suspect, because still this, we can't go interstate in this federal legal. But my boys over here have been drumming up some, they've been drumming up some things on the Instagram, and I've been watching them. I watch them. They've been, posting a lot of stuff, and I'm kind of with them now because I'm looking at it, and just to touch on it real bit right now. They really are trying to form an alliance here in the state of New York, right, for homegrown growers. And the reason for that is because when you look at other markets such as in California being the big intruder, a lot of those guys out here are trying to come here because they're getting taxed at a 50% rate.
And they're trying to beat you.
And they're trying to beat you to it. They're trying to beat you to it. So these guys are like, oh, whoa, this is our market. The New York State is saying this is our market. So how do we do this? We gotta form an alliance to keep California out. We gotta form an alliance to keep Colorado out. I like Colorado. I like what Colorado does. Yeah, I think Colorado has done a wonderful job from the financial standpoint. I think they got it right. But so I'm sorry, I like my New York, man. I like my city. I love it. No, that's where it's at right there. That's where it's at.
100%. So touch on education really quick. So what our plan is for education, specifically for the community in Mount Vernon and the Bronx Yonkers area, is we're planning to place a hold on the building, right? So we're hoping to be in contract within like a month or so on the property, where we can hold it through obtaining a license, hopefully for about a year. So during that time frame, we want to take the building and like the main first floor office area and turn it into an education center for the community, right? Where we can hold community events, individuals, politicians from the local, officials can come through there. We can explain what we'll be doing as a company, jobs that we'll be offering, especially with the 10% employee ownership there, and just things of that nature, just to really also help erase the stigma that's still very much out there regarding cannabis in the community, whatever community you're in. At the end of the day, I think there's still, it's more of like a generational thing at this point, maybe, but it's definitely there,
I've spoken at another Harlem panel. That was I was invited there by Damian Fagon. He's I believe he's about to be the chief equity officer. He is now. Yeah. He invited me to speak at another panel in Harlem at the barbershop. And that one went really well. Yeah. That was probably my first panel discussion I've ever done. And yes, Joe Buck. Yeah. I think you actually did the same thing. You were just after me. I was up there with Forbes up next. I forget.
Okay.
But yeah, so definitely want to take advantage of more panel discussions, just to kind of help New Yorkers navigate this industry, because like Marcus said, me and Matt are kind of like fire starters when it comes to other people coming in to invade New York City. It's New York. So we're a different breed than all these other states. Californians come in there with about 12 o'clock in the afternoon and think they can start doing business. We're up at 7 a.m. We starting, you know what I mean? So we have a different type of hustle here in New York. We have a different vision for what we want to see in New York. And as a grower, I know growers want to bring different cultivars to the industry that are completely different than what California and all these other states are bringing right now. I'm tired of seeing gelato and I'm tired of seeing runs. So we're bringing more haze back, we're bringing more sours back, we're bringing more OGs back and shit like that. So yeah, definitely do more panel discussions to help New Yorkers navigate this industry. Is crazy.
Actual grower, talking to growers. You and I talked rightly about, right now, they're only allowing outdoor, but potentially there's more. We know it has to be more. Why is that important? Obviously, the weather doesn't allow us to do that.
Right.
But then why is it so important? Or why do we think that they would even restrict that? And how soon do you think it'll be before they actually allow, they change the policies and begins to an indoor grow in a facility, like you're putting together? That's a 50,000
It's a big
square
facility.
foot facility.
Yeah,
That if you can't go indoor, what's the purpose?
exactly. Well, first of all, the amount of cannabis that hemp farmers are allowed to grow right now is not enough. That's first and foremost.
What is it?
It's only an acre. And that, we smoke way too much weed in New York for 100 hemp farmers to produce enough weed for all of us to consume, you know what I mean?
Remember the number, 1.2, 4.2 billion.
Yeah,
Just can't make it to credit, and farmers probably get the I think it's.
Oh, no, no.
Recall.
yeah, but it's a couple hundred hemp farmers, but it's not to say that, like hemp farms. No, absolutely not. It's just not enough. It's not gonna be enough to sustain New Yorkers, period, like an acre for 100, it's just not enough. We consume, I think it was like 7 tons of cannabis a year in New York, that's not even gonna touch what the hemp farmers are allowed to produce right now. So, I think New York and the OCM is gonna learn real fast that all the hemp farmers, harvest are gonna go pretty quick. And they're gonna need to give out more licenses. And also with that, New Yorkers have kind of been spoiled by a certain quality, right? This is our first year being able to cultivate cannabis outdoors in New York, the Northeast, one of the most humid regions in the country. Mold, detritus, bugs. We've never dealt with this. We've never dealt with cannabis in New York. A lot of these hemp farmers haven't. Some of them have. I've spoken to some of them. They've been growing cannabis pre-legalization. So some know what they're doing, don't get me wrong. But as far as quality goes, indoor is what everybody wants. When people look for a pack or when people look to go buy something, the first thing they do is look and smell, right? And when you're looking for a certain look, I know I grow certain sativas that don't have that look, they're kind of airy and stringy sometimes. And a lot of people would judge that strain and say, oh, no, that's not good. But it's genetics at the end of the day. Not everything is meant to be hard and dense and colorful. Some of the finest weed I've ever smoked in my life was green and soft and airy, sour and haze. So it's not that hemp farmers are bad. It's just that it's just not going to be enough. We smoke way too much.
One more time. Yeah, thank you very much. Outdoor, indoor, greenhouse. What are the differences?
See, if you were smart and you had a farm and you were growing outdoors, light deprivation would be your best bet. You can kind of control the environment somewhat with a hoop, or they have like these super high-tech glass greenhouses now where you can retract the roofs on them. And you can supplement light during certain hours, you know what I mean? This might help people in the wintertime. When it's too cold to grow, you put up a hoop, some space heaters, dehumidifiers, because you're gonna need them. I made the mistake of losing a crop last year because of the humidity. I thought mold, and I refused to sell moldy flower to anybody. So my whole crop went in the trash. I had no income for like 3 months. I was dead broke. I was in debt. I couldn't pay my rent. Like losing a crop is detrimental to a farmer. So if you're smart and you do have an outdoor space and you want to take advantage of that, hoops, light deprivation, greenhouses, being able to control the environment as best as possible, because leaving your crops out, look at the weather we've been getting. You think plants out right now with bugs on them with this rain is going to survive? It's not. So what's also going to happen is people like me, I'm currently breeding my own strains. I have my own genetics. I don't grow clones from other places that do my own thing. So what I want to start doing is breeding mold resistant cultivars for these farmers, hemp farmers, people that are outdoors that are more exposed to the weather and stuff like that. So it's just going to take some ingenuity on the breeders and the growers, but the Northeast weather, guys. So if you want to grow outdoors, the best bet is to get a hoop. And even if you're not going to supplement with lights, at least when you know it's going to rain, cover your plant up. Throw that hoop over, let the rain do its thing, and if you have lights, you're able to hang them up and give them that light until you're able to, until the weather clears at least. But the rain, the humidity, the mold, it's gonna be a problem if we don't have either mold resistant plants, or if you're not covering them up or giving them the right dehumidification on a daily basis when they need it. But
Okay, so I do like what you said. The reason I talked about around the country and around the world is because that's my background. I've been to 6 continents for cannabis.
wow.
That's what I do. And I think it's important to enlighten people around the world, but because we're fighting for our life here, I understand the need to focus specifically here. I think that's great. Are you guys doing anything in any of the other boroughs? Do you have links to the other boroughs? I know you guys are Bronx, Yonkers. Yeah, right, Bronx, right, Bronx, Yonkers. Are you linked to other parts of the borough? The reason I ask is because today I'm seeing these types of events, they're taking place, legitimate events, not just haphazardly put together panels. They're taking place in every borough. I was about to go to one the other day in Queens, and somebody said, "Oh, that's a pyramid scheme." And I was like, "What? Pyramid scheme? Cannabis pyramid scheme?" So, and it was in Queens, and I was like, "Whoa, okay, that's weird. That's different." But you'll find a lot of people in any industry, yes, in any industry, there are predatory practices, and you'll notice them. Have you witnessed these things, especially somebody like yourself, but as a CEO, do you run into these companies, these people, and how do you weed them out? How do you know not to waste your time?
For me personally, I think I probably can speak for these guys too, with our relationships, it comes down to the immediate vibe when you meet someone, right? And I think most cannabis people know what I'm talking about, right? Like you run to another buyer and you guys just like boom, right? You guys you can start talking, you start sparking a joint, and go off from there and start talking about your instant friend, right? So I treat most of my relationships like that as well. I feel like that initial intuition that I get when I meet someone is an instant key. Like if someone gives me that bad vibe, I'm really just very cautious around them, right? For me, all relationships are built on truth and honesty, right? And for me, the way I live my life as a martial artist, first and foremost, right, is teach you discipline, right? So that's the biggest thing that. So if you get that one shot, right? So trust is the most important thing in your relationship. If it's burnt, no. But like, definitely the initial vibe for me.
So for me, you're right. I think there are a lot of imposters out there. There are a lot of things out there you have to be careful, but you don't know what you don't know, right? At the end of the day, you don't know what you don't know. So going back to what Collection was saying, you got to start getting out the network and understand where you're going to. To Matt's point, yeah, Matt treats people like that. Yeah, oh, you cool with me. If he's having a good conversation with you, he'll communicate. Yeah, I met these people. I literally research. And Matt, I research them. This is what I'm a finance person. I reach out to this person, what do they do? And then I'm like, yo, Matt, I think we should go to that. He said, yeah, I'm going. All right. Well, he'll send me something. Hey, Mark, I think we should go. One of us has to represent. But what we try to do, we try to attach ourselves to things that are trying to move forward, not backwards, not sideways. Everything is moving forward. Everything is front facing. Everything is, hey, we're all cannabis people. We're all trying to make money for one another. Let's respect one another and move forward. If you're getting into these meetings and places and people are telling you, well, I want, and the first thing they say, I'll give you money, but I want 5% of your company. That's where you want to back off right away. Because these are the people that are coming in, they're going to eat you up, they want to swallow you up because they don't think you know what you're doing. And again, going back to what I said earlier, you probably need someone with you. You need a person that can do this with you. You need at least one person. It's going to be damn near impossible to do it as a single person, unless like I said, you're doing something in micro business at a micro business level. But yeah, that's what we do.
Also, me and Matt, also Marcus, we're always open to panel discussions and things of that nature. And like Marcus was just saying, having a team is very important. I'm only able to be here today because on the TKS side, I have a partner, Hazi. And when I have things like this to do, I have a teammate that's able to go to the garden and take care of things that I can't do in that immediate moment. So having a team and having people behind you that believe in your movement, that understand what you're trying to do and wholeheartedly want to see you succeed is very important. Because I wouldn't be able to do any of this stuff if I didn't have the proper people behind me.
So, I have exhausted all of my questions, but this is usually the time that we would leave it up to the audience. We do want to give a certain amount of time to the audience to ask questions. We do have some over there. We have one over there. Okay, we're going to start over here first. Miss Regina.
Your 16 lights, what does that translate to in terms of square footage?
Yeah,
Or canopy?
Cannabis, so that's more like 2,500, 3,000 square feet. And I'm not the king of New York by any means, but
No, but you're growing.
I'm
Yeah,
growing, and I'm in an environment, in a controlled environment, I'm indoors, I'm not growing outdoors. So I've invested a lot of money, that's something that's huge. If you want to get into growing, the upfront investment is massive.
It's the largest investment out of any of the license that you would endure.
It is massive. Cultivation has the biggest startup cost out of any license that you go for. So 16 lights cost me about $50,000 to start up. And just equipment alone, nutrients, lights, cocoa.
And just for example, like in the 50,000 square foot facility that we're going towards, it's a little over 1,000 lights. I didn't.
So to do math on that, it's a substantial amount to start on. And again, going back to what I said before, know your business model and your business plan. If you're going to scale up, understand the cost to scale up.
Also, when I started this, like I started in my closet, one light. So everything I ever got from every single one of my harvests up until maybe a year ago, I made no money. It went straight back into my business. I didn't buy any fancy stuff. I ain't got no jewelry. I ain't got nice cars. Like I drive a 2005. You feel me? Everything that I've ever done up until about a year ago, 9 years, 8 years, has all been spent, put back into my growing, into my brand. Because I needed guys to understand how serious I was and to be able to show people that I can put out good product consistently. That was my biggest hurdle.
Beautiful. So the one other question that I have right now, then I'll pass the mic. In terms of your real estate deal, what kind of deal of real estate landlords trying to make, and what's the best kind of deal from your perspective so that you maximize your profit?
So we want to buy it. We don't want to lease, we don't want to rent. But we can take over from there.
So we're fortunate enough and lucky enough to have the means and a good network where we're looking to purchase the building. But if you're not able to do that, then there's different routes where maybe you can take with the landlord to possibly a lease to buy, right? There's different options of that nature where if you find someone that will allocate those monthly payments toward the purchase price of the property, right? So that also falls into if a property is currently financed, it may not allow you to do your cannabis business there, right? Because it's a federally mortgaged property, technically by a bank, and it's still federally legal. So they will not allow that business to operate at that property. So those are things you have to look at as well.
Also, you have to kind of make it juicy as well, right? So an investor is not going to give you money unless they're making money at the end of the day. Our biggest thing was we're not trying to give up a percentage. We don't want to give any part of our souls to anybody. We want to be able to run the company how we see fit. And
So part of our deal
part of
is
our business plan is that they get paid first.
yeah. Right. So it's
Just to make it juicy enough so that they wouldn't take a piece of our company. Hey guys, you know what? The first 5 years, we'll live off of our salaries. And we'll pay you guys off completely within 5 years, and then we can explore other options. As far as maybe expanding to a new location or starting another brand.
So, and with that said, we're at the end of the day getting millions of dollars without getting equity taken out of the company, which is.
And we also think we probably could shorten the payoff period, but, again, you want to classify, yeah, it's my job. You want to classify your investors, right? You might have class A investors, class B, class C investors. And you look at the pot and say, who's going to get paid first? You might be able to pay all three at some point, a portion of what you want to pay them. But going back, Collector made a very good point. Or Matt, I'm sorry. Whoever you're working with, make sure there's no federal funding involved. If there's federal funding involved, you're screwed. This is still not legal on a federal level. Understand that. New York State is setting up a lot of financial alliances with certain banks and certain credit unions for it to be done in state. But if you're trying to do something where you're going out of state or you're working with a bank, that's why you see a lot of these larger banks are being very trepid, because they're financially insured by FDIC. This is why they're not into it. They want to. Oh, they want to. They're weak. They're just like, oh, but they can't. Because I've spoken to a lot of them. Another thing I want you guys also to be careful of. There are a lot of investors out there from an investment banking standpoint. What they're starting to do now, a lot of these deals that they used to structure, more structured finance type of deals, because the market kind of imploded on that and it got all shaky with the financial recession and all these things. And the last 2 years with COVID, a lot of these deals, a lot of these finances are coming out of investment banking. If you're not knowledgeable about this, you can end up owing a lot of money to investors. So be careful of that there, because there are investment bankers that's out there setting up these deals because it's more lucrative. They can go in where they were making, in the market before, they had a lot of risk, but they were getting 10%, 11% yield. Now they're saying, okay, well, hey, here's the cannabis market.
Cannabis tax.
This dude he can't get money from a Chase, he can't get money from a Bank of America, but I got a private investor who's been looking for a 15% yield. I'll hit you with that, and we give you all the money you want. Some people don't know that. All they see is like, hey, give me the money. But they're not thinking about how that 15% is going to eat into their profit on the long run. So be careful of those types of deals, because they are out there. Just because someone is coming in saying, I'll give you $1 million doesn't mean you have to give them 15%. Look at what they're looking at. Compare that to what you got going on and say, hey, hold on, slow down there, big guy. The market isn't giving you 15%. Why do you want 15%? Make sure the deal is advantageous from both ends, yours and theirs. And if you can't work with people on that level, you don't want. I promise you.
So are you guys looking at the licensing process, and what are your thoughts on it? Does it work for you right now, or is it not working the way you're presenting?
So we've been modeling our business plan off of the medical program that came out in 2014. In 2014, you got the property, either a letter of intent, own the property, lease, sell it. You have to have the property. You also have to show that you have investment backing, right? You also have to have $10,000 for the application, $250,000 for the actual license. So we prepared for that, which is worst case scenario in my opinion. Being that the OCM is trying to, social equity and allow people to get into the industry and things like that. We prepared ourselves for the worst possible outcome. And I think that's what everyone should do.
And we're also, we're waiting on the regulations themselves. So we're anticipating December or January for them to be dropped, which at that point, then that'll be like the Bible, right? We go through it for the sake actually.
Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. That's all I can tell you. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. Even when you do your model, small scale model, again, you might want to operate a trap house to half size in this room. That's fine. But prepare for the worst, hope for the best. Just get your numbers together and say, okay, this is the worst it can be. And if you're coming out okay on the worst end that you know you're good, then you know you're good. Because it's not going to be the worst. If it's the worst, they can't have a market. That's the way I see it. If everyone's prepared for the worst, and you give us the worst element, then the black market is going to thrive. You won't be able to push out California. You're not going to be able to push out these other industries that's coming in. Well, I shouldn't say these other these other networks that are coming in that's supplying New York right now. And if you want to get them out, you want to be successful, you have to build alliances and you have to know, that to understand that point or where you're going and what you want to do from licensing. Again, you might want to be micro business, you might want to be a distributor, you might want to be a retailer, which is great, which is absolutely great. But start networking. Like no one would know we were cultivators, right? I need to know who's going to be a retailer. I need to know you. I need to know you so we can start talking and talking numbers. Right, we got to sell to someone. And too soon is never too soon. These are the things you have to start doing now. Don't wait till later. Don't wait till you get your business out and say, all right, now, no, hey, I'm in line to get this retail license. I need to know you guys, Mark. All right, cool. This is the type of product we have. These are the prices we're thinking about doing it. Then you can take those numbers and say, okay, if I'm paying for this price, this is what I'm gonna mark it up as my retail to make my money. And these are the things you need to know, right? At the end of the day, you're a drug dealer. These are the things you have to know. I'm serious. You got to think of like this as a drug dealer. Think about it. When you're a drug dealer, all right, I gotta go buy my supply and this is the amount. I need to mark up my price to get to that. So at the end of the day. But if you don't have that network, you don't know how to do this, right? So what you gotta do. Another question.
I only have one question. Are you going to protect yourself against HLV, hotline virus? Because I know it's going to be a big issue with how everybody's going to be so close to each other and probably sharing cuts and whatnot. Hopefully you guys aren't. I'm doing 100% in-house.
Well, our facility, we're designing also tissue culture. Because we want to run all our own, we want to start our seed in tissue culture. We're not taking any chance of diseases, viruses, anything like that.
Biosecurity is a huge thing for us too.
Yeah.
So our other partner who's actually couldn't make it tonight is our COO. He works for another firm, another major MSO basically in Jersey, right? For now, he'll be joining us soon. But he already has the background of building out these facilities as well. So biosecurity is obviously air showers, clean clothes every day, clean smocks that get dispensed from the machine, showers, all that stuff.
And I obviously, I don't take loans from people. I think it's like there's still like a 10% chance for HPV to be transferred into seed stock. But like I said, we want to start everything from tissue culture.
Thank you, brothers. I got a two-part question. The first question is, could you talk a little bit more about your, you said that you're gonna have 10% ownership in your, because full disclosure, I work for the state senator and we share banking. So that's how I got involved in the cannabis space. Banks come up to us and we're trying to figure that out. So we would love to come back and have a discussion, probably bring the banks here and some other people. But we're really interested in trying to create a cooperative model and then trying to figure that out. So I would like to hear more about your model.
Yeah, so the way that we wrote it into our operating agreement at the moment for basically any vested employee that has been there for 12 months, right? So you can't start December 1st and then that year Christmas you get the bonus. You got to put in 12 months time, so you get 12 months vested, and then every year our profits, 10% of the profits off the top go into a separate fund, which then gets dispersed for all the vested employees, basically. No matter how many employees there are, right? If we have 10 employees, those 10 employees are getting split that 10%. As we grow and we have 20, on a 50,000 square foot facility, we're anticipating 35, 40 employees. That would eventually, that 10%, would get split directly between those employees.
Right, and the way we're looking at the 10%, to be honest with you, we're still kind of figuring out how we want to distribute it. We're going to make it salary based as a 10%, or if we're just going to do a division on an equity standpoint, and just go say, hey, across the base, flat rate across the base, this is what it is. I think to add to that point, the reason why we did that again is looking at the model, the social model of what the state is advocating. We want to advocate in that area. We're showing what we want to do. Point blank, we're showing that we want to do this. We want people in, and at the same time, we want people to make money. I want you to get a little something because I can't have you in there trimming my stuff all day. Right, and then at the end of the year, that's all you made was 49. You trim stuff like, some people are allergic to it but they need a job. And I understand that. When you haven't had a job and you're used to working, you might need a job. And we wanna keep that going. We want people to like the company. We want people to come in every day and like, yo, I cut butt all day long, but man, these guys are good to us, they take care of us. It's allowing me to take care of my family. We all understand inflation and how inflation is killing us right now. And we want to be there to help, just to help the community out. Exactly right. You said you had a 2-part question. What was the other part?
Answer. Got you.
What do you think you feel that's missing in what's happening with cannabis in New York State now? As people trying to transfer to the market, what would you like to see?
I would personally like to see more mention at the state level of legacy. I feel like hemp farmers did get the golden spoon right now. They got first dibs on everything. When realistically, the people who've been growing cannabis are the legacy market, right? And they kind of got pushed to the side and they're not really getting mentioned and stuff like that. So I would like to see the legacy market be mentioned more at the state level.
I know you work with the state senate, so please take these back to them and let them know one of the major concerns that I have is that I've been reading the model that these guys have put out, and from a bird's eye view, it looks great, it sounds great, but I'm concerned about some of the things. Like for instance, let me give you a perfect example. The hemp farmers, you had over 151 applications. Awesome, that's phenomenal. And like I said, we're not disrespecting hemp farmers at all. But the elements in New York is not going to allow a hemp farmer to produce as many harvests as the indoor growers, wills, and legacies, right? So now let's think about it. Where are the majority of the hemp farmers in the north of Westchester County? They're not in New York City because we don't have no land. Like you can't grow in Central Park. Or Van Cortlandt Park, you can't do it. Not yet. So now, but yeah, so right, that's but what I want you to think about and have them think about when they're scaling these things out, they're putting something out that sounds great, but they're not working for the weed. If I'm a hemp farmer and I have an acre of land, I'm not really and I'm speaking of a hemp farmer that hasn't grown before. I don't know how to grow. But if I got a business or a medical marijuana corporation that you're trying to keep out, and they come in and say, hey, I give you $5 million for your license and your acre of land, and then they have the facility, the funding to build a greenhouse, everything that you've been working to keep the corporations out, they're in. So these little key things are the things like, I don't know if you guys have, and I don't mean you per se, but I don't know if the state has kind of given consideration.
I have addressed these issues because I've talked to a lot of people who actually grow. One of the few people come out here and talk to people. And I've raised this issue with them that it's not going to be enough to, no matter how much, like the brother said, no matter how much they grow, that we're going to have these issues. So my concern has become, are they going to crack down on, and so, like I said, I think to stop this stuff, we have to do exactly what you guys are doing, to build that network of legacy folks. And the reason the state doesn't mention legacy is because they keep saying, well, it's not in the legislation, so we're not even going to deal with it. And I'm telling them that you can't. You can't do that because you're going to set New York up for some very major problems.
Yeah.
In California, it was bad.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I've spoken about was, well, the good thing is that New York City is looking at legacy. Like New York City is currently looking at for somebody to run a legacy type department in New York City.
And we're also we're speaking with, we have a friend upstate, Josh Warren, who's talking with the New York City Growers and Processors Association about possibly starting a legacy arm, which we would love to be on at that point. Can I also just make one point? Sustainability, right? Big talks on sustainability, obviously, and being an indoor facility, we're looking to make it as LEED accredited as possible. So solarize the roof, collection of rainwater, recycling of all runoff that we produce, as green a building we possibly do it. With that said, I'm hoping that they don't produce a limit on lights on indoor grows. Why? Because where are all the indoor grows going to be located, the big ones, right? In urban areas. And so if you limit light counts on indoor grows, you're gonna limit the amount of grows that are in these urban areas. And then you're taking jobs away from those communities, right? So I would really like to see no limit on urban grow lights.
So again, to the point I was saying, these are the little things, the intricate parts of what you're not considering. And I don't think the state has really, it's okay to draw out a blanket blueprint, say, hey, work it out. But once you start getting into, okay, is this a half a fraction, a quarter of a fraction? What are we looking at? That's what really matters. Because I think the retail license was another perfect example. They put out this thing, say, hey, you had, you this, but not only were you convicted or you was a victim of convention, but you also have to show 3 years of.
Right.
That's like, that's trying to find a unicorn that shoots sparkles out of it. Most, you're not gonna have that. You're just not gonna have it. So what do they do in turn? They might partner with the local vape shop who has all of that. So I'm like, I just want to use your name. Now you're marginalizing the community again, and you're pushing these people out. So you gotta be careful with these things. These are the things we need to really talk about and be careful about. If we're really trying to make this market and do it the right way.
I mean, I'm a little
Me, I think it was just,
stunned by
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a set up for failure, right?
Yes,
This is set up, and we know, I mean, let's not be idiots about this, or at least naive, we'll be naive about it. It's definitely set up failure, so we definitely have to have your game plan together, have your money in place. I wouldn't even be relying on money from the state, because it just seems to me, I don't know what it's gonna come with. I mean, no disrespect to you, but it's gonna come on the trick, you know what I mean? And I know it is, and so let's call it out. We're not here trying to, we're gonna do, we wanna do it right, but, I don't know what the state, I mean, we have a discussion about bank, but it's illegal, what are we talking about? We're gonna stay with the bank right now, don't scared, maybe later, but not now, I mean, so, I don't know, I've been looking at this now for a while, we've been in this space for a minute, we're trying to figure it out, and you guys know us, most of us know. Been to the Joe barber shop, you see what we're doing with the THC, see what we're trying to do, as well as educate community and learn ourselves, right, that's why we're out there. But we see the game. I don't like the game. It smells a little funny, but we're gonna be, no matter what, we're gonna get the thing together and figure it out.
And that's what it comes down to, right? They don't include us, like Marcus, he has a job. Matt, he owns successful businesses, they have jobs. This is all I do.
Right.
So if I can't be included or if it's not beneficial to me in any type of way, people like me are gonna keep disrupting the industry.
That's right.
I'm not gonna stop. You know what I mean? People like me aren't gonna stop.
You'll get even less of a.
That's right. Son of a stop. Well, you get to be in the, exactly.
So amnesty agreement, that's what we're looking for.
But one thing I do want to say to the point, yeah, you're right, it does smell funny, but here's where these coalitions that we're talking about, people like Tariq, talking to them, talking to us, building these panels, these guys are working on building a Rose coalition. I know Matt is working with the guy from up north. But one thing about grant funding, you gotta read it. Grant funding isn't always a bad thing.
Yeah.
You just gotta know it. And I do a lot of nonprofit. You just gotta know how to do it. The state will help you. They will help you, but you gotta follow certain accounting stuff to the T. It's not hard to do. It's time consuming. It's not hard to do. It's just time consuming. And a lot of times they will give you grant. Now here's the tricky part I'm going to tell you. You might not find that grant funding. You might be looking at it in a certain category. It might be under the farmers and cultivation grant because this is cannabis. This is considered a plant. So if you don't see it under, social economic for the, giving out grants here and there, you got to dig and search for it. And your brother from the state knows this. They'll put it in a category that you wouldn't think it'd be in that category until you really sit down and think about it. So you got to find it. It's there. There's a lot of stuff that's out there. You just got to find it. And don't be afraid to look for it. And then when you see it dissected, if it's screwed up, that's when we need to start talking to people like that.
There's a lot that I can say, so we're gonna talk later. But one of my key issues is the fact that this state has a $220 billion budget, right? And we talk about how many decades we've been harmed and terrorized. But we didn't get funds from out of the general fund to fund or to repair the damage. So they are seeking investors to fund this $250 million or $200 million for the retail dispensaries. That money should be coming out of the surplus funds that New York State got based upon COVID and other things. So that's an incredible insult to begin with. When we look at the harm, Black communities around New York State, each and every one of them, we're talking about $1 billion at least that should have been allocated to make this work for harm people across the state. So not to allocate $1, not $1, and to seek investors for this first license is despicable, okay? And understand that, we understand that they're not talking about any money. $200 million is no money. That's another insult. That's another insult. So I want you to understand that we understand that you're not talking about any money and you're really not serious about Black people and Latinos who have been the most harmed in the state of New York for decades and decades and more decades. And as far as Black farmers are concerned, I've been told there's 200 Black farmers across the state. Where are they? Yeah, they have farmers came out. I mean, they hooked them up. Hashtag hemp farmers, New York State hemp farmers so white. Okay, 99% white. Am I lying? Okay, and then they say that if Black farmers want to get a conditional license, they have to be mentored by these white farmers from these upstate racist counties.
Thank you.
Okay, so we need to ingratiate ourselves with people who don't care about us.
Vote against us.
Okay, and then when it comes to instructing, you know, teaching our people, we have to be the ones to teach our people because we want to see y'all succeed. Where is the money for the community-based organizations that have been in these communities trying to make certain that we have thriving businesses? They're not getting the money to do this kind of work. This money is going to institutions, the colleges. So there's a paywall. Someone described it as a paywall. You have to pay in order to be educated and to learn new things. Why should you have to pay? We've been harmed. These should be free classes that are offered everywhere throughout the community, multiple locations throughout the community. So there are so many problems with the way this has been written. The way it is going to be implemented if there aren't major changes, and we've been hearing that there are going to be major changes. But right now, as far as the social equity application, I mean, the definition is so broad, everybody can qualify some kind of way, okay? White people, white women, veterans, all minorities from all over the planet. MWBE, that's a minority. You get certified as a minority business. You can get a preference. It needs to be the most harmed individuals, like you and other people throughout this community and throughout this state. So these are all the problems. No, not all the problems. These are some of the problems with the way that this is unfolding. So please take this back and tell them that we need y'all to stand up, get the money, first and foremost, get the money.
I am so far ahead of you on this issue. I told them that education on cannabis should be free. And I believe in that so much. We actually did 3 courses about a year ago with the Cleveland School of Cannabis to show the state that all of this should be free. There are people, and then there are people like the brother who are doing this. He should be leading on this and the one teaching people how to do this. And this is where we're trying to push the state to. But I don't think it's going to happen at the state level. I think we have a possibility at the city level.
Okay, so we got 2 more questions, one here, and one from Zoom, then we have to wrap it up.
All right, so I wanted to mention, just kind of follow on what Regina said, and we have to support you legacy growers. I think it's not enough to just talk about social equity if we're not supporting what you're doing, because you guys have been supplying quality product. And what you're explaining to us is that this is not some, you don't just fall out of bed and do this, and then the buds just drop out and you bring them to the street. No, there's months and years of planning, and one crop can go like that. I love when you told us you're not going to sell us moldy weed, because it tells us that you've been bringing us quality product that you care about. So we need to support the on-ramp for you guys to go in. Now let's talk about who we're not talking about. We have not been talking about the 10 so-called registered organization licenses for medical. And what happened to them when they came in? They have all been snapped up by big cannabis companies. And so they are all now owned by billion-dollar corporations that are publicly traded, and have access and have, they've got Wall Street behind them. And they also have groves already in production, 200,000 square feet, 150,000 square feet, 380,000 square feet. They've made deals with towns upstate. They've gotten tax breaks and incentives. And none of this has been discussed by the Cannabis Control Board. I went back and looked at all the meetings of so-called public transparency. There has been one word talked about. What is the roadmap for the 10 organizations? Now, you guys know more than me. 200,000 square feet is a lot, growing a lot of weed. How much are they actually selling in the medical program? I don't think it's anywhere close to that. So their capacity is not justified by even their commitment to their medical license. They were brought on board to bring medical cannabis to the state. Is there a dispensary anywhere in Harlem? No. Is there one in all of the Bronx, 3 million people? I think there's one. Yeah, exactly. So the fact is that these companies that were licensed for medical cannabis have not delivered on medical cannabis, and yet they seem to be ramping up a capacity, that is far in excess of the farmers, and they're not making any on-ramp for smaller business. So these are the questions we need to ask. And the final question we need to ask, every one of those 10 organizations changed hands over the course of the last 10 years. Every one of those changes of ownership had to be approved by New York State. So what was the criteria for them to approve these changes of ownership? Did they look at their social equity track records in like Chicago, where a couple of them have been called part of the Chicago cartel and are being sued federally for not sticking to social equity? I bet they've been talking about 5 of them who have been fined in New Jersey because they double sold on their medical licenses, and they were selling adult when they were supposed to be selling medication and had to pay fines. The same companies that are here. So we have to hold them accountable, and we have to put the light on this stuff now. That's all I have.
I think we do that by supporting the brands that represent what we're doing accordingly, right? Correct.
That proposed the dollar.
Yeah, at the end of the day, that's what affects their costs.
We'll start with this last question from the Zoom. What are some of the differences between LLC and S Corps in regards to the tax implications?
So LLC, I think the tax, C Corp, you tax that like, you get like a 20% tax rate, 25%, something like that. LLC, because of the nature of the tax, you'll pay a lot of it up front. It really just comes down at the end of the year how it's gonna work. Yeah,
It's a whole nother.
that is a whole nother meeting. That's
There's a lot of detail.
because there's a whole bunch of detail, but at a high level, it just really comes down to a rate and what you're willing to give up.
Right.
And if you're not, whoever it is
We're
that
gonna,
lives,
we did one on accounting last week, and we're gonna do more
yeah.
on accounting.
But the accounting standpoint, and again, you have to know your business, the size of your business, what you want to do with your business, how you want to go.
How much
You know,
wanna sacrifice?
how much you want to sacrifice, because again, a C corp might not be the best for you.
When you open a C or S corp or a C corp, you also pay a corporation tax,
Tax, right.
every year, right? So that corporation tax is like, it depends on how we're bothering doing. But when you open an LLC, there's no tax like that.
Right. So you, those are the different things, and so you, on a C corp, S corp, you might get better with tax at a lower rate, but you're still paying that other tax rate, right? You're paying the corporation tax, or that's corporation tax, which might, when you add it together, equal up to the same tax you get at an LLC. It's just things that you gotta know and look at. You gotta dig into it. The whole tax world, that's a whole nother thing. And we could spend like 5 hours on the tax world.
Okay.
Virginia, did you want to close up by saying anything?
Well, I think I've said enough.
We shut it down. Good evening, everyone. I'm Darryl T. Downey. I represent HBA as well. I want to let you guys know that if you have difficulty with your company being formed, you need some help with your business counseling, we do that here. Just give us a call, make an appointment for you, and you can start formalizing your approach to your business, whether it be legal or not. That's what we do.
Before you close out, one thing I do want to talk about, and Matt and I were talking about this a lot. We're open. We're open to that work. We're open to cards. Our cards are up there front if you want to call. If you just have a question like, hey, have you seen this before? Chances are we probably have. We've been going through a lot. I mean,
All our social media links are on there,
Yeah.
our emails are up there, so our cell phones.
You
got a question?
And follow us on IG, TKS X Sensei.
Yeah, it's got a big movement coming.
Once we get the facility on its own, we'll hold educational classes.
Yeah, and we also have a website, www.tksxsensei.com. It's our landing page for now. You can put your email in there and stay up to date with everything we're doing.
Okay,
Thanks, guys.
so I want you guys to clap it up for Marcus, Matt, and Collective. I really just learned about them, but I've already fallen in love with what they're doing, how they're going about it. And I'm proud to say that, but I know you guys. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Community Board 10, Harlem Business Alliance. My name is Tariq Buds. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your patience and your questions. We will be doing this again next month. Appreciate it, bro.
If you check out our YouTube page, go to HBN.org. And you'll find our socials and YouTube there. And we have the prior sessions posted on YouTube. And I believe Facebook as well. YouTube is the best place to.
All right, that's perfect.
No problem.